Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. All right, so welcome everyone to today's NEM event with, it's called Innovating a Sustainable Future. My name is Dorina Voinov, and I'm from Ontario Tech University in Oshawa. So I'm also a part of the Engineers Without Borders chapter here at the university. And today's event is based on sustainable technologies. So we have our two guest speakers, Erin Barter here and Alessandra Valerio. And so they'll be telling us more about their organizations later on. First off, thank you again for joining. We're very happy to have you. And I hope that you all enjoyed today's event and learned something new from it. So moving on, I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. So the university acknowledges the lands and people of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nations, which is covered under the Williams Treaties. We are situated on the traditional territory of the Mississaugas, a branch of the Greater Anishinaabe Nation, which includes Algonquin, Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi. So land acknowledgements are very important in just being more understanding about reconciliation and giving back to the people that came before us. So in this land acknowledgement, I'd also like to share like a more personal story because I'm actually reading a book called Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And this is a book based on Indigenous wisdom, scientific knowledge, and the teachings of plants. So it's something I really like to learn personally because it brings back our roots as like kind of hunters gatherers, and it teaches us a lot about like botany and biology. So something I really like, and I'm actually going to share a quick passage from it just because it relates to NEM and how we're kind of giving back to our communities. We are showered every day with gifts, but they are not meant for us to keep. Their life is in their movement, the inhale and the exhale of our shared breath. Our work and our joy is to pass along the gift and to trust that what we put into the universe will always come back. So this is mainly meant towards our guest speakers today, Alessandra and Erin, because, well, this is like something that you're doing on your own time. This is like aside from work. So giving back your breath, giving back like your voices and your knowledge is just a great way of bringing back the NEM community and just teaching new engineers and educating us for the future. So thank you for coming and joining us today. So I'll go into the next part of our event today. So we'll go through the agenda. So I'll be introducing a little bit about sustainable development, and then we'll have Erin Barter from Waterfront Toronto talking more about the organization and sustainable technologies that they're getting involved with. Then we'll also have Alessandra Valerio from Matrix teaching us more about sustainable technologies with relations to solar technologies. We'll also have a quick Q&A period. Well, actually not very quick because there'll be a lot of time for it, but we'll ask some like questions related to sustainability and sustainable technologies in particular, of course. And then we'll also have a part of that where you can share your social media networks if you'd like to connect further with any of our speakers today or with me as well, or anyone really. And then we'll conclude our event and we'll also have a quick poll at the very end so that we can gauge the engagement of the NEM event. So without further ado, I'll go into the part of sustainable development. Oh, actually quickly, I'm going to show you all how to use the Jamboard. So this is where we're going to write our Q&A, and if at any period or any time you just want to like write a quick question, you can just jot it down, and then once we get to the question and answer period, we'll hopefully get through all of them. So I'm just going to close this, and then I'll move into the Jamboard link. So I'm just going to share this quickly with everyone. Oops, hopefully this works. Oh, no, I did not mean to do that. All right. I'm just going to pause the share for now. And this is just going to be where you can find the Jamboard link. And hopefully you could all like share your questions here. but I'll show you just quickly how to use it. So now that we're in Jamboard, you'll see I kind of have some questions here already, but you can just go to the left side. Oh, sorry, resume share. You can just go to the left side and you can click the sticky note here. And then that's where you can just write your question, hello, and just click save, and it'll pop up over here. So there's just a legend here if you want to use it. If not, it's okay too. But yeah, that's where you can write your questions. And then the next slide would be where we're going to have, you can share your socials there as well. Okay, we'll share the link again during the Q&A period too. All right, so just back to the presentation. So to talk about sustainable development, this is something that I worked a lot with regards to Engineers Without Borders. So each of these goals are like an overarching kind of goal and organization for like global sustainability. So these were proposed by the United Nations back in 2015. And since then, we've made like some leaps and strides, but obviously there have also been some, what's it called? Hindrances, like just like moving backwards instead of forwards. So hopefully over the course of the next 9 years, we'll accomplish more of these goals. They're obviously very like difficult, or there's a lot of like things involved in order to accomplish them. But essentially, this is how we get a more sustainable environment and develop more sustainable communities and organizations. And next, we'll talk about sustainability in engineering in particular. So progressive industries, that's like one of the biggest things about sustainability, because I find that a lot of industries nowadays are looking for ways to recycle the materials, use more sustainable products, or just like make even their work environments more sustainable. And in that sense, it would be like making things more equitable, like proper pay raises or equitable payments and paychecks, stuff like that. So sustainable in engineering is very, like, they really go hand in hand, I'd say, because they provide a very holistic perspective to a lot of things, like, as you kind of, here, I'll go to the previous slide, but as you can kind of see in these goals, there's so many things going on, but each of them are kind of interconnected. And that's a big part of what engineering is, at least from what I was taught. You know, concurrent engineering is the way to go nowadays. There are always people working together, and it's very important to kind of know what others are up to in order to better your own practice. And next we have lifelong learning, and that's a really big portion as well, because with sustainability nowadays, we find that it wasn't really thought of previously. Like, let's say we're burning fossil fuels at a very high rate in order to like develop the industry, develop the industrial revolution. But through that, we realize now we're just like, oh, we destroyed everything. There's so much climate change going on because there's so many greenhouse gases being emitted, and it's a very, very dirty way of collecting energy. So sustainability kind of teaches us to think more for the future. And obviously we also have increased lifespan of products, because now we're looking into not only the economic benefit, but like the environmental benefit and the social benefits of it too. And there's also an increased desire for sustainable practices in engineering, because actually recently I was talking to a colleague, and basically they're working in, I believe it's the one where you, oh my goodness, the word's escaping me. But it was, injection molding. So yeah, now they're learning how to use more recycled products instead of just using, I guess, the regular plastics in which they had before. So there's actually a whole new rule for the sustainability development of that. And next I'll just show some sustainable technologies. So I actually have a few videos here. So I'm gonna go and show you these. I found them really fascinating, so hopefully they also pique your interest. So the first one is the Vortex bladeless Tacoma. So this is a bladeless wind turbine. Yeah, the audio should be working, but so it kind of looks funny, but essentially this would work very well in areas with high turbulence and very like unpredictable wind directions, because it kind of vibrates and moves around in like the X and the Y, I guess. Whereas the wind turbine would only be able to rotate amongst the horizontal axis. And it would be more catered towards which direction the things are going. And the next one we have is the, I forget which one this one's, the petit pli. So this is, I thought this one was really neat because sustainable technologies don't always need to be energy based. They could be like textiles, like this one. I don't know, I just thought, I'm just confused why they didn't help the child there. But yes, this one's petit pli. I thought it was really neat too, because not only is it being, it's being very sustainable with textiles, because you no longer have to buy the clothes like every month, because the, you know, kids grow really fast. So instead you can just buy this textile, buy this clothing. Hopefully it's not too expensive. I'm not sure if it's hit the industry yet, but it's really neat how it just kind of grows with the kid. Yes, thanks, KJ. It is really cool. I think I just saw this today too, and I was like, I gotta put it on the presentation. All right, and the next one we have are these artificial trees in London.
London is getting artificial trees to clean up its air. German startup Green City Solutions has installed artificial trees called city trees across London to absorb urban pollution. According to the company's website, the city tree is the world's first biotech filter that has been able to considerably improve air quality. The city tree is a tower filled with different types of moss, which collect toxins such as particulate matters such as PM10 and nitrogen dioxide from the air while giving off oxygen. According to Dezeen, each artificial tree is able to produce as much clean air as 275 real trees. The structure is powered by solar panels and collects rainwater, which is evenly distributed using a fully automated irrigation system. Green City Solutions explains on their website that the city trees also contain Internet of Things technology to gather environmental data about the tree's surroundings, as well as data about its own performance. The artificial trees also have the ability to create an immense cooling effect in its surrounding atmosphere, as mosses can store large amounts of moisture. City trees were previously trialed in London in 2018 as a trial. The current project is a permanent installation. According to CNN, the structures have previously been installed in Oslo, Paris, Brussels, and Hong Kong. For more news on
So that one I thought was really cool as well, because I found the article a while ago, but then when I finally, I guess I looked up the video for this presentation in particular, I was just like, wow, they included everything. They looked up not only how it can clean the air, but it can also cool the air. It has Internet of Things, it has solar technology, irrigation, so it's kind of its own self-standing structure, and it doesn't really require as much maintenance. So that was really neat. And they put a bench so you could sit on it and feel cool. All right, so I think that's all from my side for this one. I'm gonna send it over to our first presenter, Aaron Barter. Thank you again for joining us. He is the Director of Innovation and Sustainability at Waterfront Toronto.
Amazing, thanks so much, Dorina. Those are so cool. I'm like looking at my presentation and realizing there's nothing, we're not doing anything that is as innovative as an artificial tree. That was very cool. I feel like we've got even more work to do after learning. I'm gonna share my screen here. Let me just make sure I got this. Okay, can you see my screen now? One sec.
Yeah, looks great.
Okay, I just want to bring up this other screen, sorry, so I can see all of anything that's coming through in the chat and keep Zoom up here. One sec. Great, okay. So it's so nice to be here tonight. Thanks so much, Dorina, and thanks to everyone else who's helped to organize such a great event. And it's very exciting to be speaking with you all today. I wish that we could be doing this in person and getting to meet each other. But here we are in the world we're living in. So I'm going to speak to you tonight a little bit about our work at Waterfront Toronto, and going to share a little bit of background on what we do and some of our work that's ongoing on the waterfront. And then I'm going to spend a few minutes walking through our vision for green buildings and sustainable neighborhoods. And I'll highlight a few examples of where we see some activity and where we're seeing technology play an important role within sustainable development in cities. And I think that should take about 20 minutes, and then we can do a bit of a Q&A. So we'll dive right into it. So if we go back, I want to orient you to the better part of a century ago, when Toronto's waterfront was synonymous with industry, isolation, and inaccessibility. We had a lot of factories and warehouses on the waterfront, and most of it was constructed upon land that had been filled into Lake Ontario. And so up until the early 2000s, this was unchanged. We had this industrial space, and it was lacking infrastructure. We had a lot of environmental contamination, and it was really a relic to Toronto's industrial past. A space that was once a booming manufacturing economy that was no longer the case. We saw that type of industry moving out of downtown Toronto, and we were left with contaminated land. So enter Waterfront Toronto, a tri-government corporation formed in 2001 with the goal to revitalize the lands by Lake Ontario, transforming these past industrial sites into new, thriving neighborhoods that support economic vitality and improve quality of life. And we have some very key public policy goals that go along with that work. So we're reducing urban sprawl by building downtown. We're developing sustainable, complete communities, increasing the supply of housing, building transit, parks, and ultimately contributing to economic competitiveness. And these are our goals as an organization, looking out for the public good. And within that, we have kind of three jobs. We work and we steward forward revitalization of Toronto's lakefront. We are a landowner, and sometimes we work with other government landowners to revitalize their lands. And we partner with the private sector to make all of this happen and bring investment into Toronto's waterfront. And we've been at it for about 20 years. We work across a broad geography of downtown. It ranges from Ontario Place in the west over to Coxwell in the east. And if any of you are from Toronto, you'll know that most of our work has been focused right in the central core along Queens Quay West. And this is really the part of the waterfront that has gone through revitalization in the last decade. Now we're looking more towards the east. And so I want to talk today about a few neighborhoods that are coming forward in the eastern part of the waterfront. And so in our first few years at this, we've had some good success. Developed almost 3,000 new housing units, including 20% of those as affordable housing. We've built 90 acres of parks and public spaces, which you can see on the waterfront, and then some of which are a little bit further out. We've also constructed a new gigabit speed internet network across the waterfront, which includes a digital inclusion program for marginalized and affordable housing occupants on the waterfront. And we've also constructed a streetcar line, which was the first in what is 20 years or so. So a good track record. We also have constructed quite a few green buildings. So we're approaching now 30 LEED certified buildings, gold or platinum. And we're really thinking now, and what I'm going to talk a little bit later on, is kind of where do we go from here on green buildings and sustainable development. I'm glad you mentioned the Sustainable Development Goals, because it is one of the frameworks that we report against to the government and to the public as our stakeholders. And so we focus in on 4 of the Sustainable Development Goals: affordable and clean energy, which we achieve through our green building requirements, access to innovation and the industry and also the residents who rely upon that, sustainable cities, of course, overall, that's part of our mandate, and climate action through our framework and our green building requirements. So these are tracked annually within our annual report. And we've actually just started using the SDGs as a framework. We've seen a lot more traction on that in the industry. In the East Bayfront, this is a rendering to show some of the progress we made between 2005 and 2019. You can see here George Brown College and Chorus Entertainment located on the waterfront. So new parks. This is a new development by Tridell and Hines that we led on a former warehouse site. And then we have a new project here in the back, which I'm going to talk about, which is called Quayside. And so this is proximate to downtown and waterfront property, and it was formerly owned by the City of Toronto. As we look a little bit further out, another major project we have is in the Portland. I'll highlight very quickly, this is Sugar Beach, which is a great place to hang out in summertime. And so as we think further east of downtown, we're converting what you see here, which is former industrial lands and warehouses, into new green spaces in a neighborhood that we will call Villiers Island. And Villiers Island will be surrounded by water, of course, as you would expect. The new outlet for the Don River will flow south and around to create this new flood protected neighborhood on Toronto's waterfront. This work is underway right now and will be completed in 2024. And it's a large green infrastructure and biophilic design that leverages the natural flow of rivers to create safe and resilient infrastructure. Very exciting. I won't get into too much detail tonight, but if you'd like to learn more, happy to chat about it during the Q&A. And this is just an image of what I just showed you previously, what this will look like in practice. So this is the Don River, and this is the Don Valley Parkway, which you might be familiar with. This is Villiers Island, which will be created out of the former industrial lands. And this is the natural flowing river that we are creating right now. And again, this island is kind of just off the shore of mainland Toronto, and again, proximate to the downtown core. So we're currently working on the infrastructure, and then we will be developing this into a new neighborhood. Again, on former contaminated warehouse sites, which we're pretty excited about. We guide all of our work through this framework, which we developed at the Canadian Urban Institute. It's fairly straightforward. We have 5 overarching objectives. We want all of our work to be in support of climate action and to be climate positive. We take an inclusive lens to resilience, so we want to make sure that as we're building out infrastructure and services for communities, that we're doing it with an eye to marginalized populations in Toronto and ensuring that we're delivering on the services and infrastructure that those communities need. We take a connected approach to these communities, and so specifically, as we build them out, we connect them with the highest speed internet that we can, which is gigabit internet, fastest in Canada. And we use, again, as I mentioned, this digital inclusion program to subsidize services to those who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford it. Everything we do is about creating new human experiences on the waterfront. And so from our street designs to our building designs, everything comes back to how the residents and visitors will experience the waterfront. And lastly, as I said, being inspired by nature and relying on what we can learn from nature to bring new designs forward in infrastructure and buildings. So this is biophilic design. The Quayside project is another new development project on the waterfront. You can see it highlighted here. It's kind of an L-shaped site. And we've just recently launched a new call for development partner for this property on March 10th. We're qualifying development teams. And with that, we have some very aspirational goals around green buildings. So I kind of want to use the rest of this presentation to dive a little bit deeper into what I mean by that. There's a few examples here, but I want to walk through topic by topic what we think the best practice is in 2021 for green buildings. And we want to specify what the outcomes that we can expect from a community like Quayside in 2021. Kind of what is the state of the art? And so I will walk through that in a bit more detail. The community is oriented around the Parliament slip. And we propose, as I said, that the buildings and the physical elements of these new neighborhoods is all in service of creating an experience for visitors and residents. And so what you see here is our vision for what the public realm and the public spaces outside the buildings can be. And then here you have a bit more about what the built form will be. Quayside is a dense urban neighborhood with buildings ranging from 8 stories to 45 stories. And with that comes a set of challenges and opportunities around sustainability. And we believe that in the context of a dense urban neighborhood like this, you can achieve net zero or very close to net zero using technologies that are available today. So I will walk through our green building requirements for the site. And we've broken them into 6 categories. The first is that we will require all of the buildings within this project to comply with the Toronto Green Standard. And this is an existing municipal energy and sustainability code that we've decided to align with, instead of aligning to LEED. And basically what we're doing is we're trying to make these development projects on the waterfront support the City of Toronto's Climate Action Plan for 2050, which is called Transform TO. And so by aligning with the municipal policy environment, we're trying to make sure that our buildings are in support of the broader objectives of the City of Toronto. I'll speak a little bit about what we mean by resilience planning and specifically around physical and climate resilience. We have a set of requirements around sustainable water use and sustainable sites. And we'll get into that in a bit more detail. Enabling low carbon transportation within the neighborhood is achieved by promoting active transportation, public transit, and electrification. We have guidelines for clean construction and a shift away from single-use plastics within solid waste. And lastly, we have a set of strict requirements for energy and greenhouse gas performance of these new buildings, as well as some more prescriptive elements like the requirement to test all buildings for airtightness. And so these requirements are applied by Waterfront Toronto in contract with development partners. And so although we're not actually out there with a hammer putting up these buildings, we're contracting with the private sector, and these are the requirements that they're obligated to use. And so overall, what that means is that future buildings on the waterfront will have a set of very ambitious characteristics. And if I just walk through a few of them here, we're reducing the actual greenhouse gas intensity of these buildings to 5 kilograms per meter squared per year, which is very low. You could then further offset that to bring it to net zero, but we're simply saying that the design of the building has to support very, very low carbon operations. We're also specifying that all new buildings must be built with sustainable materials such as recycled steel, FSC certified lumber, or low carbon concrete. And buildings will have a choice to choose whichever type of material they choose to use. They must use a sustainable option within that type. We're also looking for buildings to not only use the weather that we're experiencing today in Toronto in their energy modeling, but to also forecast after 2050, what will the weather be like? If we experience 2 degrees of warming or more, what can we expect the weather to be like in 2050 or 2060? And so this is not currently done a lot in the industry, and it's something that we're asking all of our buildings to do. And then lastly is we're making sure that these buildings support biodiverse and native species within the landscaping outdoors. And then we have a set of other requirements, quite a few other things. I'll talk about them in a little bit more detail, but we've tried to be comprehensive in terms of how we're defining the requirements for these new green buildings on the waterfront. So to move through them, I'm going to skip a few, but I'll spend a few minutes talking about a few of these. So on resilience, we also want to make sure that all of the buildings are not only designed for future weather events, but we know that we're going to be getting more extreme weather in the future. The climate will be getting warmer and wetter and wilder, and we need the buildings to be designed in such a way that they can thrive through those circumstances. And so things like backup power being located above grade, or ensuring that buildings have refuge areas for power outages or flooding events needs to become common practice. And so we're asking that all new buildings do a resilience assessment to ensure that they're properly accounting for those future risks that will become the reality as a result of climate change. Similarly, we want to make sure that we're building more sustainable sites in the landscape around the buildings as well. And so we've set out some requirements for, as I mentioned, biodiverse and native species, but also for the inclusion of urban agriculture on all of the rooftops of buildings to ensure that everyone who lives within the community has access to garden plots and can grow their own food or help to build the community, help to grow food for their neighbors. We think that that's a really important community building aspect, but also has local air quality impacts, and we believe that it's a great use of space within the city. And we're also looking for buildings to not only set aside space for this type of urban agriculture facility, but create the conditions around it to have restaurants that would use some of these vegetables, or stations for school groups to come in and use the facilities, or other things like that, the kind of the peripheral elements of urban agriculture that can benefit a community. And as a part of that as well, we're hoping that the buildings can take advantage of new opportunities in natural stormwater management. So what you see here, this is actually a project in Victoria, BC, that is using a natural wetland to not only process their stormwater, but also, in this case, also their black water. And so this is a facility that is dual purpose, obviously creates green space within the community, but it also serves a very specific function with managing water as well. And we think that's a great example that we'd like to see more of. Using native species and biodiverse species is something that we don't always think about, but it's very important, not only for the health of those species. We know that there's a lot more greater success of choosing native species, but also for natural pollinators. So I think like the bee population can benefit from having biodiverse and native species, and ensuring that we're creating opportunities for broader biodiversity to thrive within the context of the landscape. We're also specifying that buildings will use rainwater for all on-site irrigation and within the toilets and urinals in the building, which I think is kind of a no-brainer and something that everybody should be doing, but is not the case. So we're setting this out very clearly that new neighborhoods and new buildings will have to use rainwater for toilets and irrigation. In transportation, we're really focusing on creating the infrastructure for cargo bikes, e-bikes, electric vehicles, and bicycles, just in general, to have active transportation options available to everyone who would like to use them. And so we're specifically calling out charging infrastructure for vehicles and bikes, space allocation for cargo bikes, and just making sure that we have the facilities and infrastructure in place to support active transportation as much as possible, acknowledging that sometimes this is not possible for everyone and not throughout the year, but we want to make it as enjoyable as possible. On sustainable materials, we are, as I mentioned, specifying types of materials or characteristics of materials, but we're not specifying that you have to use one in particular. And so we believe that FSC certified mass timber is a great solution. Similarly, low carbon concrete could fulfill some of those objectives. We also believe that within the design of the building, we should be adjusting for future uses. And so instead of demolishing buildings in the future, we should be able to either disassemble them or adapt them to future uses. And we will specify that within our requirements. And then lastly, on total carbon emissions, as I mentioned, requiring that buildings hit a very low level of greenhouse gas intensity that will enable zero carbon across the whole community. We're also looking for all buildings to disclose their embodied carbon content, which is, I think, a really important aspect of climate action that we haven't taken seriously to date. And so both disclosure of embodied carbon and reductions of operational carbon are requirements for all waterfront projects. And we believe that there are some interesting ways that you can get there. Of course, some already exists. In Toronto, we have deep lake water cooling, for example, which is a great innovative solution that allows us to reduce the amount of air conditioning load during summer. Of course, we would expect that to the extent possible, we would include solar within the development. And I think maybe the other presenter this evening may have some other ideas that we could adjust and take into account with building integrated solar. We're also looking to get into passive design techniques, such as passive house construction. This is 2 towers in Vancouver that are going to be passive house certified. And we're very excited about the prospect of using the design of the built form itself to reduce the heating and cooling load and create more resilient and lower energy consuming buildings. We think that that could be applied in Toronto at a scale that we haven't yet seen, and we're excited to set the requirements out such that we can see more projects like this in Toronto and on the waterfront in particular. And then, of course, we have energy management and tools that we can use to reduce the carbon within buildings that exist, and I'm sure many of you have them at home. And as you begin to orchestrate some of those tools and solutions across a community or across a larger building, you can dramatically cut the greenhouse gas and energy consumption of the building. So we're very excited about not only what we can do, but also the work that our development partners can contribute to this. And we would hope that in new neighborhoods like Quayside, we can see many of these technologies and solutions deployed to overall make for a more sustainable neighborhood. So we're pretty excited about it. I'd love to take questions later on, but maybe I'll just pause there and pass it over to Alessandra.
Thank you so much, Jared. That was amazing. Oh goodness. I don't know. There's so many really cool things that are being based like so close to home too. Like I'm just in Oshawa, so I'd love to. Well, I know that there's a lot of really awesome things already coming up. So thank you for sharing the updates, and I'm looking forward to seeing the new projects coming up too. So yes, as you mentioned, here I'll share my screen just for a moment. And next we have Alessandra Valerio from Matrix, who is a specialist of integrated solar technologies at Matrix. So
Okay.
thank you very much again, Erin. And for the
You're
first
right. Oh my God, Ariel, I'm so excited. I was just wondering, okay, tell me more. More slides. So it was amazing. Yes, really. Oh my gosh. Because my background is in architecture. So like, okay, this rendering, look this video. Everything's so amazing. Oh my God. Okay, let's just share my screen here. Just a second. Mhm. Yeah. Can you guys see my screen? Okay. Just a second. This I cannot see you. Okay, Dorina only can see only you. Okay.
Oh yeah, your screen's good to go.
Just okay. So thank you so much, everyone, and it's amazing, Doreen, and everyone here, everyone. And just I'm learning a lot. I'm here to learn. And for the end of the presentation, if you have any questions, the last slide is my contact email, mobile phone. You can have my LinkedIn is like a forever connection here. Okay, don't worry about it. If you don't have time here, you can contact me anytime that you want. Okay. So let's start with matrix. Is okay. It's spelled with I, but it's not matrix. It's matrix. And matrix. What is matrix? Matrix is a developer and manufacturer of integrated solar products such as cladding, windows, railings, acoustic barriers as well. And our vision is to simplify the integration of solar technology into everything around us, generating renewable energy. So today I'm going to talk here about integrated solar technology into the building facade that is called BIPV. It stands for Building Integrated Photovoltaics. That is not, yeah, it's working. Okay. So solar energy can be generated by every surface touched by the sun, right? And due to significant advancement in technology, a variety of integrated photovoltaics technologies available and in development today as well. So integrated photovoltaics, we call like IPVs, come in many forms, and solar energy generating buildings, cars, airplanes, sidewalks, and roads are some of examples of possible IPV applications. So you can apply this in everything that you want. It's not only for building, actually. And in this case, Matrix invests heavily in research and development, and all of these applications are part of our mission to increase solar energy adoption around the world. That I cannot, I don't know, it's not moving. Okay, it's going. Sorry, I have some problems just moving to the next slide here. So just to give a little bit of our background, Matrix is a division that is part of GCAT group. And this group actually started at around 30 years ago by the name of Artisan Stone, as you can see here, which is still in business today. And Artisan Stones creates pieces of stone and marble for high-end use with large stones pieces that the problem is that it's too heavy with a huge thickness. So Artisan Stones motivate us to create Clarify. Clarify use the expertise and knowledge of cladding and building facades in order to be a lighter and fast installation. Clarify develops aluminum honeycomb. I'm going to show you more images about it, but it's aluminum honeycomb aerospace technology attached to the stones, which now is thinner in Clarify company. So when you have these stones that is now is thinner, you have more efficient cladding, which manufacture lightweight engineered cladding of any material as well. So as a great vision to combine the clarified knowledge of the honeycomb aluminum and the needed of integrated solar technology, Matrix is able to provide an aesthetic pleasing building facade and a clarified honeycomb technology with solar technology. So it's basically a perfect matching to deliver self-sustained buildings and meet some needs as well. I'm going to just to talk about how is all this about. Okay. So to understand, of course, to understand where we're going, we have to understand what is the problem is. It's just really quick here. Everyone here has this expertise about sustainability. So, so what is the problem that we are today too dependent, as Dorina said before, on fossil fuels, which are one of the causes of climate change, and renewable energy, especially solar technology, is not really a new concept, right? However, the adoption has been hampered by poor aesthetics, high price tags, and slow production. So Matrix provides an aesthetic pleasing and rapidly produced solution that will increase the adoption of solar technology and at the same time mitigate climate change. What is this? I just makes like, what is this about? So basically, solar technology has virtually endless applications, as every surface exposed to the sunlight has the potential to generate electricity. So we understand and take advantage of that. That's really important because you can use, for example, here you have the noise barriers, bus stop, parking lot, solar farm, for example, is a possibility too. You can use in everything they want. There is no barrier actually. So we see endless possibilities now in the future for how we can promote greener cities that will provide clean, green, and locally produced electricity. That's the main idea here. So as you can see here, just really simple example here. Our BIPV modules, you not can really see what's going on. Let me explain a little bit more what this is about. So they are easily installed and the wiring is invisibly incorporated to keep the integrity of the facade design. So basically, when we talk about all the systems, we include everything, all the components. It's not only about the photovoltaics or the system that I'm going to explain a little bit more further, but you have to understand that it's important. It's all the systems that have to contribute to work together. So a BIPV system includes, for example, a solar array, combiner box, just a lot of things. You just read some of them, but you have, just to explain really quickly, you have the solar energy, you have to transform the DC, that's a direct current, into a AC, and this AC building can use this AC energy. So you need an inverter, for example, to invert the DC from AC to AC, so you're able to use it. And you don't need a specific space in your building, you don't need any specific room. It's really simple application, actually. And when you have these modules with the solar cell, you can also use what we call a data acquisition system. Actually, you can check using your cell phone or anything that you want that has this software. You'll be able to monitor every single panel individually to make sure that your BIPV system is working optimally. So it's really important so you can make sure that everything is working properly. And for larger systems, you can ensure that every extra kilowatt your system generates is saved for your consumption by adding a battery. So at Matrix, we have a design team. Normally we have, we talk with builders, architects, and everyone, they have this project, the blueprints. We just use, it's called Pegasus, the name of the software. And then we can check everything. So what is the capacity of your building? How much electricity your building can produce? That's really important. About the shade. So there's another building or trees. That's important too. What is the best way of doing or installing these panels as well? So it's important to see everything around this building as well. So basically, Matrix solar cladding is engineered for efficiency and at the same time, a versatile design. So as you can see here, our cladding is made of several layers. The facing, I think you can see here, the facing is made of tempered glass, and this tempered glass can mimic any design. So wood, marble, granite, solid color, you name it, whatever you want, can mean anything. And then you have the ceramic coating feature colors and inks that are UV stable and fade resistant. What I mean by fade resistant is like it doesn't change the color over the years. So after, I don't know, 10 years, 30 years, gonna look exactly like the same building, same color, doesn't change the color. And there is also anti-reflective coating that helps the solar cells absorb as much sunlight as possible, increase the efficiency of the panel, and also anti-soiling coating. What is this anti-soiling coating? The dust cannot settle in this glass. So it's gonna look clean all the time. Why is that? Because when you have like rain or snow, all the rain is not gonna clean your facade with this anti-soiling coating. Then you can produce, your system could be more efficient because you don't have the dust in your facade, right? And the tempered glass layer also has the important function of protecting the solar cell. So that's how it works, the sandwich here between an aluminum honeycomb backplate, because it's really light, and the glass in the front. I'm gonna talk about it a bit about the solar array as well. So we also work with balconies, the glass of the balcony. So the glass of balcony is made of 2 layers. It's tempered glass that sandwich a solar cell as well. So when you see a balcony in your building, a glass or a window or anything, we can produce energy too. You use a thin film between the tempered glass, and you can produce renewable energy with everything that you want. You're not going to see anything, any conduits or wirings. You cannot really see anything, and you're going to keep producing your solar energy. Here, I think it's important just to show some examples, because sometimes I have some clients have some questions regarding, okay, now about all installations and wirings, what do you do? So each project is a different project. Here you can see, for example, cap railing system. If you are not sure if in this image you can see it's too small or not, but you can use the cap railing system to put all the conduits that you need. So everything gonna be hiding inside of the cap railing or the base railing. So the basic here is you don't have problem with your facade being ugly or I don't know, not aesthetic pleasing. We work with a renewable energy, green energy, and also an aesthetic pleasing facade. We combine both words, let's say this way. And here are just some examples that you can see, like the aluminum honeycomb in the back and the glass in front. The solar cell cannot really see it, it's in between. So how it's possible to make different colors, how it's possible to, for example, you can see red color, look like wood or granite, marble, anything that you want, or images, like anything that you want, how it's possible. So we fuse inorganic pigment behind the glass. And these technologies, we say that similar to stained glass, like church. You can see church, for example, you will see colors in the glass of church for years, hundreds of years. So it's similar, the technology is really similar. So basically you can do this with the glass. And because we are using these layers, when it's darker, you use less layers, so it's better efficiency. And when it's brighter, you need more layers of this pigment, so it's less efficient. So if you work with, for example, this color here is dark, kind of black with golden lines, you can see in the bottom. The efficiency will be much better than the first one, like is more yellow or white. So that's because you have more layers or less layers. But anyway, the idea is like you're gonna use your facade. How to make your facade work for you. Because anyway, you have to use something, right? You have to use anything for your exterior wall. So let's make this exterior wall produce renewable energy for your building. That's the idea. and you're going to turn your building into a macro power plant. Right? And let's go here. And that's really important too, that we work from the blue skin out. So basically, what's the best option for installation? That's really important too. So we are just having a lot of meetings just regarding what's the best system to use according to the building or the high rise or mid rise. We have a lot of types of installations while everything is a system, not only the cladding, is everything the blue skin out. This is a video, let me just, how can I play? Okay. Just a second, just input in there, here, this from. This videos is in our website, but I just gonna give you some examples. It's really important for sure we comply with all the Ontario, Canada guidelines. It's really important for high-rise buildings. We have 30 years of experience in cladding. Sorry, I was looking to my second screen. and we also have this testing in your base plant here in Etobicoke, Canada, Toronto. I don't know what is Racine Road, that's the name of the street. So we just run a lot of tests and to ensure that the building code compliance is also, it's really important to have different types of, and this one's really cool. We have different types of testing. Paintball test. I like to do this one. Yeah, you can see the stone cladding, the difference when you have, for example, the matrix, you have the glass and a stone. When you want to clean, for example, it's really simple to clean something like that. That's really important about the maintenance. Is we say that it's maintenance free, zero maintenance. And I'm not gonna go through this, but just for you to understand that there is some federal tax incentives as well. So when we talk with the owners, it's important to just understand, because we are talking about renewable energy, it accelerates the depreciation of the solution. You don't have to wait for 25 years, a little bit complicated this part here, I think. I have some specialist metrics to talk only about that, but you don't have to wait 25 years. You can depreciate in as fast as 1 year. So it's a kind of incentive to use renewable energy. That's really important too. I think it's pretty cool, this one. We have this calculator in our website as well. So this is really important. For example, one building over a period of 30 years, if you're using green energy, you can produce 13 million kilowatt hour. If you're compared, for example, with more buildings, 50 buildings, it's 10 billion kilowatt hour. That's equivalent, for example, 9,000 tons of CO2 out of the air, or 6 million trees planted. So basically you can use your building to produce and be efficient, and that's the main idea. That's it. I'll try to be as fast as I can, but for sure, if you have any questions, if you want more information, technical information, be more than happy to share everything that you want. Is no problem at all. You can contact me, email, cell phone, smoke sign, whatever, whatever you need. Okay, just stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Alessandra. Oh, that's so cool. I don't know. I never thought I would see like solar technologies in like glass railings and stuff. I thought that was really neat because I'm like, huh, I don't know. I really thought to utilize it for something other than a railing, right?
Me too. I thought the same. I'm like,
This is new.
Yes.
Oh, that's
Thank you so much.
Thank you as well. Oh. All right, so those are some wonderful presentations. Thank you to both of you for sharing like, company prospects. We're gonna move into some panel questions. So I'm actually gonna open this now. I'll share my window. All right, so if while we're going through the Q&A, anyone has any additional questions, feel free to ask them as well. So I see the first one that I saw pop up was, what is your educational background? So I guess like what prepared you in terms of post-secondary education to take on a role in sustainability? I guess we'll start with Aaron first.
Sure. Well, I guess I'm an engineer. I studied mechanical engineering at U of T, and so very excited to be a part of National Engineering Month. And I didn't do a master's. I think that's an interesting, we could probably have a good group discussion on that. Not for any real reason other than that I ended up in some roles right out of university that were interesting, and I thought I should just keep going and see where it took me. And so I didn't go back to school after doing my bachelor's.
Mm-hmm.
So that's me.
Okay, that's awesome. Thanks, Aaron. And how about you, Sandra?
Yes, thank you. I started actually, I think it was 10 years ago, working with building materials. It was a scholarship from my university back in Brazil, and I had to work with EPD certification, EPD label as well. So I started as a research, and then I moved to a company that worked with LEED certification. And I thought that, it's really important to combine academic background in sustainability and as well, like the practice every day you're using that, because it's really different when you just go through the academic background, but when you actually use in your day-to-day life. So after that, I was looking for some companies that will be developing some new technologies. So I started working at Certainty at Saint-Gobain. It's a multinational company. So they really work with new technology, and they focus on only sustainability or LEED certification and everything else, but how you can improve everyday life. So I was just combining both. So I finished my bachelor's in architecture, and then I moved to specialization engineer as well in building materials again. So it's kind of my thing, just to combine both. And I studied for a year and a half University of Toronto as well, but in the architecture part. And I learned a lot about photovoltaics 8 years ago, actually. And that was all the time thinking about the energy solutions, the renewable energy in building materials. So all the time working for that. So I learned a lot in the company at Saint-Gobain, Certainty, and now I work in Matrix. It's pretty cool when you talk with the manufacturers, because they have this ability to understand everything. That's what is the important part of innovations, not only about the technology, but how to use that, the economic aspect as well. So that's me. That's what I think. I don't know.
Definitely. Oh, I totally agree with that. And I love how you actually mentioned the LEED certification as well. Because I guess I had a more personal question. I was wondering, when pursuing a career with sustainable buildings, did you find that the LEED was like something that helped you like get your job? Was it something that was kind of mandatory, or was it more like a personal certification that you got?
It's really important to understand LEED certification. There are a lot of types of certification, not only yes, it's every day I think there's a new one. But it's really important because I got now a point of view as an architect, because as architect, most of the time you think like, oh, this is a nice building, this color is amazing. But when you have some criteria or points just to guide you, I think it's really important how to guide you towards sustainability. So what I have learned through this year is not only about, okay, let me go point by point. It's not only about that, but it's kind of guideline to understand what are the most important things. That's the way I see the certifications. That's my point of view, just a guideline. You don't have like just think, oh, only that. No, have to think about everything, think out of the box actually, but really helps you to give you the basics, you know, like what is this about. I think it's really important, really, if you want to go through this certification, help with the vocabulary to understand what is about life cycle, what is EPD, what is everything. And I did some certification GBC, but you had to keep going every month. I think there's a new thing to learn. So I think it's really important.
For sure. Aaron, did you have any thoughts on that as well?
I completely agree with what Alessandra said, and I think that it's really it must be a challenge these days, I think, to figure out kind of which certification is going to help you the most, because as she said, there's so many out there. I think that there are some others that I think are you know, becoming more popular, but aren't very may not be as popular right now. I think certification with or learning about passive house construction, I think, is a very interesting domain right now. And I think learning about passive design is sometimes it's as important as some of the other technologies that come along with the built environment. So I think that there's a great opportunity to learn about some of those principles, especially if you don't have a background you don't have a technical background. It can be really helpful to take some of those courses and build your technical knowledge on a very specific area, just to get you a little bit further and maybe get you in the door for an interview that you might not have otherwise gotten.
Well, that's awesome. I was actually curious, you mentioned the passive house design. Was there something, like how would you describe passive house? Because I'm like not too like knowledgeable on the subject.
Sure, yeah, and I mean, I think it's a great opportunity that we have an architect here as well. So if you want to add anything, but generally, you know, designing the building, the envelope of the building and the windows and the to be as energy efficient as possible, such that your heating and cooling system can be reduced in size, and your overall, the amount of energy that you're consuming is very strictly limited. And so in practice, what that would mean is that you would make use of either passive heat from the sun on the south side of the building. You'd probably overbuild the north side of your building with insulation, and you basically run an optimization exercise to reduce the amount of energy and then use the amount of passive energy, use the maximum amount of passive energy that you can for the building, which I think is a really exciting idea, because it's not actually requiring us to build separate heating and cooling systems to the same size that you would otherwise need. And seeing the message in the chat, I think there's an organization called Passive House Canada that offers little courses, like a few hours or a few days, that you can take and learn a little bit more about that specific part of building design. And I think it would be great for somebody with a background in civil engineering or mechanical engineering, or even if you had a non-technical background and you could take some of those courses to build your skills in a certain area like that, could be a really valuable thing to do.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you for that. Did you have anything as well to add with the whole passive house, Alessandra?
I would say that if you don't have a really technical background, imagine that during the Canadian winter, you're just going on the streets, imagine that. And you just feel like, oh my God, I can feel the cold, the wind coming to your jacket, you know, okay, you didn't use the clothes properly. So you're losing your heat. It's stuff like that. So how do you avoid happen this with your house as well? You know what I mean? Like how you build your house in a way you're not losing anything. You're using everything that you have inside your house in a way, not take energy from someone else, just to try to make the best of it. You know what I mean? Like it just sort of analogy, just to explain a little bit, but Aaron was really good at explaining it too.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's a great way to put it too. Because I definitely don't wear my jacket properly, that's for sure. I don't really button it up. I don't really like tie it up properly. I always feel a draft. I'm like, this jacket is horrible. It does make sense. Once you utilize your resources properly, it's going to be more effective. So it's great that
Exactly.
analysis is being done more into that aspect too. All right.
You got it.
All right. Let's see what other questions we have here. Ooh, that's a good one. What is the biggest challenge or barrier when it comes to implementing sustainable technologies? So there's these awesome ideas out there, but there's obviously like some challenges, whether it be denial or just like people that don't really support the ideas very well. So if you want to go first, Aaron, for this one.
I can, but I'll be brief because I think that Alessandra probably has more specific project experience at this. I think from our perspective, one of the things that we, and just to back up a bit, is the model that we transact around. So when, as the landowner, we are generally going out to the market to have a developer who is then going to invest in the land and the buildings and then put up whatever it might be, apartments or commercial buildings. And so the transaction value on the land generally accounts for how aggressive our sustainability targets are, amongst many other things like the affordable housing and design. There's many factors, but one of them is how aggressive are we with the sustainability requirements for the project. And so that means that the more there's the perception, in some cases it's true, that as you go to lower energy, more efficient buildings with all of the bells and whistles that I talked about in my presentation, it adds cost to your project, which then lowers the amount of revenue that you make on the land if you're in our case. And so it's a balancing act of choosing what's most important for the community and for the public good, and narrowing in on those technologies and features of the building that will, will have the best cost benefit, basically. And so for us, we've had to go through quite a process to try to understand the cost implications of sustainable technologies, and then forecast how that will affect our revenues off of land sales. And that process sometimes it takes years to fully button that up the whole way, because we have to brief governments and brief the city and everyone. So there's a lot of work just to understand the costs and then communicate the costs and then convince people that undertaking those costs is worth it and that it's the right thing to do. I find that many folks will understand intellectually that there's a climate crisis and that we need to do something about it. But when they just look at the numbers and they see that it costs a little bit more, and they don't understand that what they do is part of the broader response to the climate crisis, and so they need to take that action. But sometimes it's hard for them to see that, and so it's really just convincing people that it's worth it. And then the last thing I'll say is that in many cases, notwithstanding what I just said, in many cases, it's actually a very good cost benefit to invest in sustainable technologies. Solar in your building facade will have a positive business case. And so if you can structure the business transaction to take into account the revenues and the efficiency savings off of a certain technology and articulate that, then it can be much more readily implemented.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes it's hard to sync up the benefits of that business case to who is required to invest in it. And you might have incentives that don't perfectly align with investing in the solution and reaping the benefits of that technology. So with that, I'll pass it over to Alison.
Thank you.
Copy and paste of Aaron just said. But another thing that when I approach someone like architect or builder owner, everyone that works technologies and buildings, the first thing I think is the mindset. First thing they say, oh, I don't want to be the first. I want to be different. Like, okay, and it's so funny because I talk to them. They say they love sustainability, sustainable solutions. They're all about innovation. But when you talk about something different, it's the first time for them. They say, I'm not sure if I want to be first here doing, or because I have a lot of buildings, I'm not sure if it really work in here in my company or not. It actually was one of the first barriers just to talking about, and no, let's think about more other things that involve in this as well. And then the second thought is about the cost, all the time the cost, because they don't have like infinite resource to do something, to build something. And sometimes it's difficult to understand everything that is connected with the cost, because you're saving money here and you're using your money there, but how is the relation? Some is really common to compare apples with, I don't know, orange. It's not the same thing. So to clarify all the aspects and how it works, what it involves, is really hard sometimes for someone that's new for this technology, or they're just starting to understand how it works. You just feel that actually try and understand how it works and just jump, yes, I know that works, I know that's possible, let's do it. It's just like 1 in 1,000 maybe. Yeah, so it's like a process, like, but it's really important. That's why it's really important, this kind of event or students, because when you become a professional, is you already have a different mindset, I think, because for example, in my undergraduation program didn't have any like actually exact like that. It's like some things or others, but not too much, you know what I mean? So I think if you start early stages, I think you're gonna help a lot in the future. I think it'll be better for everyone with a different mindset. I guess, I believe that. I'm not sure if that's it.
Yeah, it's definitely a great way to put it, because a lot of these things, whether it be like, I guess the biggest challenges of implementing sustainable technologies that I've stuff are just yeah, like the cost, and people, there's lots of interest in it, but if it's not like a way for people to make not like quick cash, or like they don't see the money in it in the next few or couple of years, they're like, oh, it's not worth it, I'm not going to invest in it, because it's like it's not as effective, or it's not as like useful of an investment. So that's why it's great to see that these technologies are there, and it's just a matter of, like you said, getting the word out there, getting more companies involved. And then once people start realizing that the cost benefit is just going to be made back in a few years, it's going to be good. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
One thing I would add, I see the note in the chat about government programs offering. I actually don't have a great answer to that question in terms of where to find that information, other than I'm sure it's on websites somewhere. But what I wanted to say as well is that although we sometimes like to ignore this, especially as engineers, we think in very technical terms about how to get things done and how to build them. But there is a very important policy dimension to sustainability. It's hard to ignore. You have to appreciate that a lot of what we do connects back to various public policy goals of government. And so I would encourage everyone here to, to learn about the policy environment and understand how sustainable technologies are impacted by decisions by governments, and both favorably and unfavorably, and just to learn that and learn the regulatory system and the policy system to try to make sure that we're moving towards a more sustainable future. Trying not to be too political in what I say, but I think there's a very important dimension to it that we need to acknowledge. And so there will be more of what Alessandra and I have described. There will be more of that if we have a favorable policy and regulatory environment to allow that to happen, which I think in Canada right now we do, which is pretty interesting. And I think in the United States in the last few months, that is also true, where you've got more support for sustainable energy and sustainable buildings than than they've had previously, which is great, because it's a big factor.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a great way to put it. So many countries and like organizations are getting more on board with it because a lot more people are becoming more understanding of, yes, there's this big problem we need to deal with. Climate change is right around the corner. Like there's so much that can be done, but there's also like so many people that are also willing to take it on and to learn more about it. So thank you for sharing. There's a question here for Alessandra. Just regarding the solar energy, does it still work on non-sunny days?
No, we need the sun for sure. But for example, if you have this huge high-rising building, imagine that, I don't know, 50 stories, and you can produce a huge amount of electricity, of energy, you can use batteries if possible. So it's case by case. But if there is no sun, you don't have like the source of the energy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. And I think we have time for one more question. So I think I'm gonna go with, what inspires you and motivates you to continue a career in a sustainability field? And I'll send this to Alessandra first.
Okay. Yeah. For me personally, it's actually, it started a long time ago. I realized that this industry is an industry we are all the time thinking about new technologies, how to improve, how to become better. That was the way I was seeing sustainability, and at the same time building a future. So it's really nice, like you're in this industry that all the time have these challenges. I like to deal with challenges. It's my personal feeling all the day. Like I love thinking out of the box and new challenges. And you have new technology. When you're implementing new innovations or new technology, you have to rethink everything around it. Around this, you have to rethink everything again and again and again and again, how to improve it, and at the same time how to become better. So it's more personal for me, and I think it's really related with sustainability. That's how I see it. And at the same time, you're just make the lives better in a way. You're using the resource, but you also think about, we are part of the nature. We are not like detached, or like we are not separated. You're working together. We're supposed to work together with them. Like, so that's the main idea. That is the core for me. I think that's me.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's such a wholesome way to put it, because I think that's what a lot of philanthropic work is. Like, people can choose a lot of industries that are like, let's say there's more money involved, but like when you think about the root of it all, you're right. Like, we're all connected to nature. We're all human. We're all like living on this land and living off of it too. So like the fact is, if we can give back to it in some way, or we can sustain it for others and like just make it better for people around us, that's just, I don't know, I don't know, for me as well, it just feels good to like know that that good is like impacting others like that. And so Aaron, would you like to share as well? Oh, you're still muted too.
Yes. You think a year after the start of the pandemic, I would have learned. And your question was, what keeps us motivated, or what motivates us around sustainability? Yeah.
You had to like continue.
To continue, yeah. Well, what I'd say is that this kind of forum, and I think a lot of you, I assume, are students, although I wish we could have had, I'm sure we will have a chance to connect after this, but it's great when you're in school and you're learning about this to set yourself in a direction. And I think what you also just mentioned, Dorina, which is like, the more that you can, choose the industries that you work in and the jobs as proactively as you can, better. I think it's a good time to be very thoughtful about it, because as you move into your career and life will get real, and you'll have responsibilities, and all these things will happen. And it's good to it's kind of, you know, think about it now when you're a student is a really important time to get excited about sustainability and really learn as much as you can about different facets of sustainability, is what I would say. For me, I had to take a pivot. I went off in one direction when I graduated, and I thought a few years later, I thought, is this actually what I want to be doing? Like this, when I was in school, I cared a lot about sustainable energy, and then I went off in this other direction, and I was like, no, this isn't actually what I want to be doing. This is making the world worse. This isn't making the world better. And then I had to backtrack and find my way through this other channel. So as much as you can, just try to, you know, use and appreciate the time that you have as a student, even though I'm sure it doesn't feel like you have a lot of spare time, to learn and engage with topics of sustainability, because it's the perfect time for it. And then as you go into your career, you continue to engage with students just like we are today, because I think that's where a lot of the innovation and the most forward progressive thinking is happening, is in universities and in student classrooms. So yeah, just try to stay connected with young people who are thinking about this stuff. That's what I'm trying to do. That's why I'm here tonight, is to connect with all of you.
Oh, thank you so much. This is very awesome. And yeah, like, thank you so much to Aaron and Alessandra both, because without you two today, like teaching us more about sustainable development and like the inspirational things that you could do with sustainable tech, I would definitely be a bit more lost myself, because I'm still, I'm in mechanical engineering too. I'm trying to figure out the kind of avenue that I would like to take, but I definitely love the problem solving, so we'll see where it goes as well. So without further ado, I think if anyone wants to add their contact information to the Jamboard, I'll share the link again. And then it'd be awesome if you want to contact Alessandra or Aaron, feel free to do so. Like they mentioned, like it'd be awesome to, if you have any more questions, because I know we missed some questions today. You can reach out to them as well. And I'm just going to pull up the slides once more. As a quick thank you, and we're also going to pull up a poll in Zoom. So it'll just be one moment. All right. This is a quick thank you to our partners. So this is for the whole NEM event as a whole. So this is everyone that was involved. As you can see, there's a lot of companies, a lot of organizations. So if you like today's event too, you can check out, they're having events up until March 31st. So it's like, I think every weekday pretty much. There's like a lot of really good events, from like panels to workshops, activities, networking events. So you can get more involved if it interests you. And yes, thank you, Alessandra, for sharing your LinkedIn as well. And we're just going to launch the poll now. And it'll be a quick, like 2-minute poll, and just letting us know for the NEM event. I think that's all the votes for now. Okay. All right, so I think that's, wait, is it time? Oh my goodness, it's time. That's awesome. Thank you again to our guest speakers, Alessandra and Aaron, for joining us. I totally agree, Kriti, they're very inspiring. And I'll definitely look into these potential career paths for myself, because they're, I don't know, it just seems like you can make such a good impact. And it seems like you're also not only well-rounded in your career, but also on like self-awareness, so to speak. So thank you again for joining us.
Thanks so much for the opportunity. It's been great.
You're welcome. You're
I
very
learned a lot. I have learned a lot too. And please feel free to contact me anytime. I don't know if you need more information or anything. No, don't hesitate. It's really important to connect and build your network around sustainability. Yeah.
For sure. I totally agree. When you surround yourself with like-minded individuals, you become that individual.
Yes.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
That's great. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Bye, everyone.